There's a silent lie that's been repeated so many times that many people have come to believe it without question. Be more present, more available, more attentive, and she'll like you. It sounds nice, it sounds right, but in practice, that's exactly what's making you lose her interest without even realizing it. Because while you believe you're demonstrating value, in her mind something completely different is being interpreted. And this is where a truth that few dare to face comes in. The problem isn't that you like her too much, it's how you demonstrate it. Machiavelli already said that people are not driven by ideals, but by interests. And in the game of attraction, interest doesn't arise from total availability. It arises from the perception of value. When you become always accessible, always present, always ready, you eliminate the space that desire needs to grow. And without that space, interest begins to die, slowly, silently, until it disappears. Now think about it. How many times have you seen someone lose interest out of nowhere? The conversation was good, the connection seemed real, and suddenly it cooled off. Most people think it was bad luck, timing, or even another person. But in most cases, what happened was much more subtle. You started showing that you were too available, too predictable, too easy. And the human brain by nature values what requires conquest. It's not logic, it's instinct. And when there's no more challenge, there's no more emotional tension. Without tension, there's no sustained interest. And that's why understanding this changes everything. Because it's not about becoming cold or distant, it's about stopping making a mistake that's sabotaging your own chances. And when you start to see this clearly, a new possibility arises. What if, instead of losing interest when you get closer, she started to become more interested when you take a stand? If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul. An invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now. Not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder you are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. He begins by understanding something most people avoid facing. Human nature is not guided by noble ideals, but by self-interest. Machiavelli observed this centuries ago when he wrote that politics should be guided by reality, not ideals. And here we are not just talking about kingdoms or wars, we are talking about human relationships, especially attraction. The mistake many men make is believing that being too good or always available will generate connection. But in practice, this often has the opposite effect, because deep down people respond to signals of value, not intentions. And when someone is excessively available without realizing it, they are communicating something that goes far beyond words. They are saying, "I have no other options. I need you. I depend on this." And this, however harsh it may seem, reduces perceived value. Machiavelli spoke about the importance of the appearance of virtue. Seeming something can be as important as, or even more important than, being it. In the game of attraction, this translates into presence, posture, strategic silence. A man who understands this does not act out of neediness. He acts consciously. He knows that being feared rather than loved doesn't mean being aggressive, but rather respected. And respect begins with how he positions himself. It's not about manipulation, it's about understanding the game. And whoever ignores the invisible rules of this game ends up playing against themselves. Now observe a common pattern. A man meets someone interesting, starts a conversation, and quickly begins to revolve his life around that person. He responds immediately, always initiates conversation, is always available. It seems like dedication. But through Machiavelli's lens, this is a lack of strategy, because the end justifies the means, and the means he chose was excessive giving without building value, and this breaks the natural dynamic of attraction. A practical example: think of someone you admire. Is this person always available to you? Or is there a certain degree of scarcity, of mystery, of a life of their own? The answer usually reveals the point. Value is associated with scarcity. And scarcity doesn't mean playing games, but rather having a life that doesn't revolve around a single person. A man with virtù and fortuna understands that his energy is a resource. He invests, but with calculation. He shows interest, but doesn't give himself completely immediately. He observes. He measures. He calibrates. This is the calculated use of force, not physical force, but emotional and social force. And this type of posture creates something that many ignore: tension. And it is precisely this tension that keeps the interest alive. When everything is handed to you on a silver platter, there is no reason to continue exploring. And this is where the brutal honesty that few dare to accept comes in. Often it's not that she lost interest out of nowhere. It's that the signals being sent began to communicate low value, and this happens unconsciously. No one wakes up and rationally decides to lose interest. It's an emotional process, guided by perception. Machiavelli would say that decisions based on real human nature are the only ones that work. And human nature values challenge, growth, unpredictability. A man who understands this doesn't try to convince anyone to like him. He builds a life that naturally generates interest. He invests in himself, his social circle, his career, his physique, his mind. He becomes someone difficult to replace. And when that happens, the dynamic changes completely. It's no longer him chasing after her. It's interest arising as a consequence. But to reach that point, it's necessary to abandon illusions and face reality as it is. And when he starts doing that, an inevitable question arises. If it's not about being available, then what really generates desire? He begins to notice something curious, almost uncomfortable when analyzed honestly. People rarely desire what they already have guaranteed. There is a deep psychological mechanism that links value to uncertainty, achievement, and scarcity. It's not rational, it's instinctive. From an early age, human beings learn to value what needs to be earned. And here enters one of the most silently powerful ideas within Niccolo Machiavelli's logic: decisions based on real human nature. It's no use fighting this with beautiful speeches or good intentions. The reality is that desire needs space to exist. When everything is available all the time, the brain simply doesn't activate the valuation mechanism. It's like having unlimited access to something. At first it's incredible, but it quickly loses its shine. This happens with objects, experiences, and people. Therefore, politics guided by reality, not by ideals, requires him to understand this invisible game. It's not about being cold or distant, but about understanding that constant presence without value creation generates saturation, and saturation silently kills desire. He realizes that by always being there, he eliminates the space the other person needs to miss him, to project value, to imagine, and without imagination, there is no desire. Now consider something simple and extremely practical. Why does a message that takes a little longer to be answered sometimes generate more impact than an immediate response? It's not about playing games, it's about perception. When someone always responds instantly, absolute predictability is created. And predictability in the emotional realm is comfortable, but rarely exciting. A man who understands the concept of the appearance of virtue doesn't show anxiety even if he's interested. He maintains composure. He demonstrates that he has a life happening outside of that interaction. A direct example: instead of responding immediately every time, he responds when it's convenient within his routine, training, studying, work. He doesn't pause his life to respond. He fits the conversation into his life. This communicates something powerful without needing to say a word. I have priorities, and priority is a form of scarcity. And scarcity, when legitimate, activates desire. This connects directly with the idea of virtù and fortuna. He controls what he can control, his actions, his posture, and understands that the rest is a consequence. He doesn't force connection, he creates conditions for it to arise. And that completely changes the game, because instead of trying to convince someone to like him, he starts to position himself as someone who naturally sparks interest. And here's a point many avoid accepting. When interest wanes after becoming too available, it's not bad luck nor misfortune. It's predictable. The human brain works based on stimulus and reward. When the stimulus ceases to be challenging, the reward loses value. That's exactly why the end justifies the means within this logic. No matter how hard he tries, if the chosen means communicate low scarcity, the result tends to be a loss of interest. And this doesn't mean manipulating, but rather adapting, constant adaptability. He begins to understand that he doesn't need to offer everything at once. He can reveal parts of himself little by little. He can create layers. He can allow the other person to invest as well, because when only one side invests, there is no construction of mutual value. And without emotional investment from both sides, interest cannot be sustained. He ceases to be someone who gives everything and becomes someone who allows discovery. And it is at this moment that an even deeper doubt arises. If desire depends on scarcity and perception, then why might insisting on chasing after it be exactly what destroys everything? He begins to understand one of the most counterintuitive truths of the game of attraction. The more someone chases, the further away they seem to get from the result. This is not coincidence, it's communication. Every action transmits a message, and often the message is not aligned with the intention. When a man pursues excessively, even with good intentions, he triggers an unconscious reading in the other person. He needs this more than I do. And need, in this context, is interpreted as a lack of options, a lack of perceived value, and even a lack of emotional control. Niccolò Machiavelli already pointed out that power lies not only in the action, but in how that action is perceived. Better to be feared than loved, in the symbolic realm, means being respected before being approved, and whoever pursues is almost always seeking approval. He responds too quickly, makes himself too available, insists too much, and without realizing it, he dismantles his own position. Because the calculated use of force is not about intensity, it's about timing. It's about knowing when to advance and when to retreat. And those who don't understand this end up giving everything away before even generating real interest. Now, consider a common scenario. He sends a message, the response is slow. He sends another, and another, and another. In his mind, this is interest, but in the other person's emotional reading, this becomes pressure, and pressure generates resistance. It's almost like an aggressive sales pitch. The more someone insists, the more the other wants to distance themselves. This happens because the human brain protects its own freedom. When someone feels they are being pulled, the natural reaction is to distance themselves to regain control. A man who understands decisions based on real human nature realizes this early on. He doesn't try to force a connection. He doesn't try to accelerate processes. He creates space. A practical example: if he asks someone out and the response is vague or lukewarm, he doesn't insist immediately. He backs off, returns to his own life and observes. This communicates something much stronger than 1,000 messages. I don't depend on this. And this posture completely changes the dynamic. Because instead of pressuring, he starts to generate curiosity. And curiosity is one of the most powerful engines of attraction. Without curiosity, there is no sustained interest. And here comes one of the harshest but necessary readings within Machiavelli's logic. Avoiding being hated doesn't mean pleasing all the time. On the contrary, those who always try to please end up being predictable, and predictability, as we've seen, reduces perceived value. Constant pursuit eliminates mystery, eliminates tension, and eliminates the space for the other person to invest. And without investment from the other side, there is no balance. He begins to realize that attraction isn't about unilateral effort, but about exchange. And exchange requires reciprocity. When only one side chases, the other only observes, and often loses interest. That's why the appearance of virtue also comes into play here, appearing focused, appearing busy, appearing selective. All of this influences perception. It's not about pretending, it's about aligning behavior with reality. He needs to have a life that justifies this posture. And when he builds that, something changes. He stops being someone who pursues and becomes someone who chooses. But this opens up a new, even more delicate question. If pursuing pushes away, then what is the ideal point between demonstrating interest and maintaining value? He begins to perceive a nuance that completely changes the game. There is a huge difference between courting and pursuing, and most men confuse the two. Courting is intention with control. Pursuing is intention with desperation, and this difference, although subtle in action, is gigantic in perception. Niccolo Machiavelli already taught that the appearance of virtue shapes how the other interprets each movement. In the field of attraction, this means that it is not enough to feel. It is necessary to know how to express it. When a man courts, he demonstrates interest, but maintains dignity. He leads, but does not beg. He invites, but does not insist. This activates a profound mechanism, the feeling of choice, because in practice, the conquest process works as a filter. Throughout evolution, choice has always been based on signs of value, stability, and emotional control. A man who gives himself away too quickly, who becomes totally available, transmits the opposite of this. But the one who leads with presence, calmly, and with a certain mystery, activates curiosity. And curiosity, as we have seen, is fuel for desire. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, demands that he abandon the fantasy that the more I do, the more she'll like it. It doesn't work that way. The value lies in the quality of the interaction, not the quantity. Now consider a straightforward example. Two men show interest in the same woman. One texts her constantly, showers her with excessive praise, and is always available. The other asks her out, conducts the conversation lightly, but isn't always available. He disappears for a while, reappears purposefully, and maintains a steady pace. Which one generates more curiosity? The answer is almost automatic, not because one is a better person than the other, but because one understands the calculated use of force, and the other doesn't. Courtship involves rhythm, it involves timing, it involves reading the context. He shows interest once, observes the response, and adjusts. That's constant adaptability. And this is where a practical point comes in. Instead of constantly praising her, he chooses specific moments for it. Instead of talking all day, he creates interactions with a beginning, middle, and end. Instead of always being available, he makes it clear that he has a life going on. This isn't playing games, it's structure, it's positioning, and positioning communicates value. A man with virtue and fortuna understands that he doesn't need to chase after her. He creates an environment where interest can grow naturally, and this, little by little, causes the other person to invest as well. And here comes the part few want to admit. When a woman feels she already has the man completely, without needing to invest, without needing to discover, without needing to conquer, interest tends to wane, not out of malice, but due to natural functioning. Attraction involves movement. It involves discovery. It involves a certain level of emotional challenge. When everything is resolved too early, there is no incentive to continue. Therefore, avoiding being hated doesn't mean always being predictable or always accessible. It means maintaining respect, and respect is born from posture. He begins to understand that he doesn't need to disappear or play manipulative games. He just needs to stop giving himself away prematurely. He learns to create space. He learns to let the other person participate in the construction. Because when there is investment from both sides, the bond strengthens. And when only one invests, the other only consumes. And it is precisely at this point that a strategic shift occurs. If there is a correct way to conduct things, then what are the practical laws that support this dynamic in everyday life? He begins to see that attraction isn't luck, nor natural talent, it's structure. There's an invisible pattern that separates those who consistently spark interest from those who always almost get it right. And this pattern can be understood through very clear principles, aligned with Niccolo Machiavelli's vision. The first law is simple, but brutal. Respect above sympathy. Many men try to be agreeable, funny, available, but forget that desire is born from respect, and respect doesn't come from pleasing, it comes from posture. A man who takes a stand, who doesn't accept just anything, who knows how to say no when necessary, communicates value. This is better to be feared than loved in a strategic sense, not to generate literal fear, but to be someone who cannot be easily ignored or manipulated. The second law, strategy above brute force. It's no use trying to compensate for a lack of assertiveness with excessive effort. Sending more messages, giving more attention, trying harder, only makes things worse. The calculated use of force teaches that less at the right time is worth more than a lot at the wrong time. He stops acting on impulse and starts acting with intention. The third law completely changes the game. Your value is not defined solely by you, but by your surrounding environment. This is your social circle, a man who is involved in interesting environments, who has friends, who participates in social contexts, automatically increases his perceived value. It's the logic of having your own loyal armies, not in the literal sense, but symbolically. He's not alone in the world. He belongs to something. This communicates security. A practical example. Instead of focusing only on one person, he begins to expand his social life. Gym, events, networking, hobbies. This not only improves his life, but completely changes how he is perceived. The fourth law, personal excellence. There are no shortcuts here. Appearance, communication, mindset, discipline. A man who trains, who dresses well, who knows how to converse, who has goals, naturally becomes more attractive. This is virtù, the ability to build one's own reality. And when this combines with fortuna, the opportunities that arise, the result is inevitable. He stops depending on external validation and begins to generate value internally. And the fifth law, perhaps the most ignored, act based on reality, not fantasy. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires him to observe the signs. If there is reciprocity, he advances. If not, he retreats. Simple, but difficult to apply for those still emotionally attached to the outcome. A strategic man doesn't insist where there is no return. He doesn't try to convince someone to like him. He accepts reality and adjusts his course. This is constant adaptability. And here comes a powerful shift. He understands that the end justifies the means, in the sense of choosing behaviors that generate the desired result: respect, interest, connection. It's not about manipulating, it's about aligning action with results. And when these 5 laws begin to be applied, something silently changes. He stops reacting and starts leading. But knowing the laws is not enough. The real difference appears when this translates into everyday behavior, and that's exactly where many still fail without realizing it. He understands the laws, but now he needs to live them in everyday life, because knowledge without application is just a well-explained illusion. And here come the principles that change behavior in practice. The first is direct. Truly live your own life, not as a discourse, but as reality. A man who has routine, goals, commitments, and pleasure in his own life doesn't need to feign scarcity. He is naturally scarce. Niccolo Machiavelli spoke about decisions based on real human nature, and the reality is simple. Interesting people have interesting lives. A clear example: he doesn't cancel training, study, or work to answer a message. He answers later, and that changes everything, because it communicates priority. The second principle: show interest only once and observe. He invites someone out, proposes something, and waits for the response. If it's positive, he continues. If it's lukewarm or negative, he doesn't insist. This is calculated use of force. He doesn't waste energy where there's no return. This isn't coldness, it's emotional intelligence. And this posture creates a powerful filter. The third principle is what most bothers those accustomed to chasing after things: being genuinely scarce. It's not about artificially disappearing, but about having a life that naturally limits your availability. This connects to the idea of virtù and fortuna. It builds a routine where your time has value. A practical example: he organizes his week with clear priorities: gym, studies, networking, personal projects, and interaction with someone becomes part of life, not its center. The fourth principle: always act with dignity. This means not begging for attention, not insisting where you're not welcome, not accepting crumbs. Better to be feared than loved here translates to being respected before being accepted. A man who maintains dignity, even in the face of rejection, automatically differentiates himself, because most react with neediness. He reacts with poise, and poise generates memory. Even if there is no interest at that moment, the way he behaves is recorded. The fifth principle is the turning point in the dynamic, letting the other person invest as well. If only he initiates conversation, only he calls, only he shows interest, there is no building, only consumption. He begins to observe. Does she initiate conversations? Does she suggest dates? Does she show curiosity? If not, he reduces his investment. This is constant adaptability. He adjusts based on the other person's behavior, not his own expectations. And the sixth principle, the most difficult for many: knowing when to walk away, not as a game, but as a conscious decision. If there is no reciprocity, he leaves. Without drama, without long explanations, without trying to convince. He simply returns to his own life. This is the end, justifying the means in a strategic sense. He chooses to preserve his energy and his value. And when he begins to apply these 6 principles, something silent happens. He stops being someone who chases and becomes someone who chooses where to invest. And this change in identity naturally leads to a deeper question. Who is, in fact, this man who operates this way in his daily life? He stops focusing solely on techniques and begins to incorporate a way of thinking. Because in the end, consistent behavior stems from identity, not from a one-off effort. The so-called Machiavellian man, inspired by Niccolo Machiavelli, is not a manipulative or cold person, as many imagine. He is, above all, someone aware of reality. He understands that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, applies to all areas of life, including relationships. He is not fooled by beautiful speeches. He observes behavior. He reads signs. He understands that people say one thing but respond to another, and this completely changes how he acts. He doesn't react emotionally to every situation. He interprets, he adjusts, he chooses. This is constant adaptability. He doesn't try to be perfect. He tries to be effective. And this difference, although subtle, changes everything. Because he doesn't seek approval. He seeks positioning, and positioning generates respect. In everyday life, this translates into simple yet extremely powerful attitudes. He wakes up with purpose. He takes care of his body, mind, and career. He understands that personal excellence is not optional, it's fundamental. He reads, studies, and develops himself. Books like The Prince by Machiavelli himself, or even classics like Think and Grow Rich, help shape this strategic mindset. He dresses well, communicates clearly, maintains eye contact, and speaks calmly. None of this is exaggerated, it's aligned. He doesn't try to impress, he expresses himself naturally, and at the same time, he builds a solid social circle. Friends, environments, connections, this is the idea of having one's own loyal armies. He doesn't walk alone, and this automatically raises his perceived value. A man like this doesn't need to prove anything all the time. His presence already communicates, and when he interacts, there's a different kind of lightness, because he's not there trying to conquer at any cost. He's there choosing whether it's worthwhile, and perhaps the most important point, he masters himself. He understands his emotions, but he is not controlled by them. If he feels interest, great, but he doesn't lose his composure. If he feels rejection, that's fine, but he doesn't lose his dignity. This is the calculated use of force on an emotional level. He knows when to advance, when to retreat, when to be silent. He doesn't talk too much, doesn't expose himself too much, doesn't give himself away too soon. There is a rhythm. There is control, and this control is not repression, it's awareness. He also understands that the appearance of virtue matters, not in the sense of falsehood, but of consistency. He aligns who he is with what he demonstrates, and this generates trust. But above all, he knows one thing that completely changes the game. It's not intentions that move the world, it's the signals. And that's exactly what leads to the most important truth of all. Now the question is no longer comfortable, but necessary. Are you living in a way that naturally generates interest? Or are you trying to compensate with effort for what you lack in assertiveness? Because ultimately, it's not about that. It never was. It's about the signals you're sending out every day, often without realizing it. Are you chasing after something? Or are you building a life that makes people want to walk alongside you? Are you seeking approval or commanding respect through your demeanor? Most men continue to repeat the same mistakes, expecting different results. And this isn't a lack of information. It's a lack of decision, the decision to change behavior, the decision to stop acting automatically, the decision to face reality as it is, not as you would like it to be, exactly as Niccolo Machiavelli taught. So let me really challenge you. What in your routine today communicates value? Your physique, your discipline, your social circle, your ability to walk away when there's no reciprocity? Or are you still stuck in the cycle of trying to please, trying to make it work with one-sided effort? Because until you adjust that, the pattern will repeat itself with different people, but with the same ending. And there are no shortcuts here. You need to start acting like someone who chooses, not like someone who begs. You need to learn to show interest without losing dignity. You need to understand that the end justifies the means, and the right means are those that preserve your value, your energy, and your position. It's not about becoming cold, it's about becoming solid. And solid men don't need to chase, they attract. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these points did you identify with the most? Where do you realize you're making mistakes today? Comment below, because often just putting it into words is enough to start changing the pattern. And if this content opened your mind in some way, if it made you see something you never noticed before, then you already know what to do. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, because here you will continue learning to play the game of life with strategy, awareness, and reality, not with illusions.